Hi, this is Chris from needlepointers.com. This video will show you how to use your Accuquilt cutter and how to assemble this double 4-patch block. And it's called the double 4-patch because there's two sets of 4 patches here and then the solid color here and here. This block can be made with the dies that are included with any of your Go Cube blocks. It's also featured in this book that came for free with my Go Cube. In the book, it tells you what dies to use for this block and how much fabric to cut for each of the dies to make each block. In this tutorial, I'll walk you through the whole process of making this block, from cutting with your Accuquilt cutter all the way through assembling the entire block. I have a 10-inch Go Cube, but this block can be made with any size Go Cube. But you'll just have to keep in mind that you may need more for your quilt. You may need more or less blocks depending on the size of your cube. If you'd like to see a picture tutorial with step-by-step instructions, please click the link in the description of this video to go to our website, needlepointers.com. There you'll find the step-by-step instructions, and also if you're interested in purchasing an Accuquilt Go cutter or want to learn more about Accuquilt Go cutting systems, please also go over to that page and we will have a link to our review on Go cutters. So let's get started cutting the fabric for one of these blocks. You will need, out of your Go Cube, the number 1 square, which is a 5.5-inch square, and your number 2 die, which is a 3-inch square. I have this vines fabric that I've cut 3 width of fabric strips at 6 inches wide. Then I cut 4 strips width of fabric at 3.5 inches wide of this tulip fabric, and I cut 4 strips width of fabric 3.5 inch wide of this yellow fabric. It's yellow with some dots in it. So these are the fabrics I'm going to send through my Go cutter and cut the blocks. Okay, so when you send fabric through the Go cutter, you can cut up to 6 layers of quilter's cotton in one pass. So what I'm going to do is take this and fan fold it back and forth across the die. I'm going to check to make sure that I've covered up the whole dark gray section because that's where it's going to cut. And then I will put the cutting mat on top. And it's ready to send through. Six blocks cut with one pass. For the smaller width of fabric strips, I'm going to cut these 3-inch squares in the same way as I just did the larger blocks. I'll take the fabric and fan fold it over cover it with the cutting mat. Send it through. I have 4 strips of this yellow dotted fabric. And I will cut this in the same way. So all the fabrics for this quilt are now cut, and they were cut very quickly with the Go Big Cutter. Next we'll continue on with assembling the blocks. So the next step is to sew together the 4-patch blocks. Now the other thing with my fabrics here are the butterflies and these tulips is a directional fabric. So in order to sew my 4-patch blocks, I need to be sure on mine to sew half the blocks with the yellow on the one side and the other half the blocks with the yellow on the other side. So half of them I'll have the yellow on the left, half will be the yellow on the right. Because then when I put them together into a 4-patch, I can put them together like this and make the 4-patch. So if your fabric is directional, just keep that in mind when sewing your 4-patch blocks, to be sure to sew half with your other fabric on one side and half with it on the other side. So the next step will be to sew these 4-patch blocks together. So for my first 20 blocks, I am going to sew the yellow fabric onto the right side of the directional fabric. I have my 1/4 inch foot installed on my sewing machine. If you don't have a 1/4 inch foot, you're just going to have to use your 1/4 inch guide to sew a 1/4 inch seam. I have my sewing machine set on a straight stitch at its normal length. So I will put the two together and sew the 1/4 inch seam. I have a white or cream thread in the top and in my bottom. To piece these together quickly, you can use this technique that I am using, where I don't cut the thread after each one. And I sew it off the edge a little bit and then put them together. And to make it even quicker, I could have had these already together in the right orientation and then just picking each one up and sticking it underneath. So now I've set all my pieces up together so they're ready to sew over here, and to show you how quickly you can do this. So as you're approaching the end of the net of the one, you can line up the next one and then just keep going. And then they just hang off the back and they're all attached together. So I'm finishing up the last one. So here's all the ones attached together in one big long strip. So next I will be sewing the yellow onto the left side of each of the pieces. So I'll be putting them together the opposite direction, like this, and sewing them. So I'm going to set up all these with them put together in the proper direction and then send them through the sewing machine all attached together. I'll be back in a few minutes. So next I will cut these apart and open them up and iron the seam to one side and stack them up, so then you'll be ready for the next step, which is going to be sewing them together into the 4 patches. Next we'll finish the 4 patch blocks by putting them together So the same fabrics are opposite one another. In this case, I have a few of these butterfly blocks, so I'm going to mix them in. Most of the 4-patch blocks are going to be assembled like this. You want to make sure that when you assemble your 4-patch blocks that you assemble them all in the same direction, or like either this direction with the yellow going across that way, or this direction with the yellow going this way. You want them to be consistent so that when you put them in the quilt, they're all going to match up the same way when you put them in the larger blocks. So to put them together, I just put them face together, line up the edge, as so, and your press seam allowances should mesh nicely and be going opposite directions there, and then sew a 1/4 inch seam. So there's the first 4-patch block finished, and I will finish up the rest of these and be back. As you can see, I have finished the 4-patch blocks and I press them open. I chose to press open the center seam completely open like this in order to reduce some of the bulk so that there wouldn't be so much bulk all on one side. And I pressed all the blocks flat. The next step is to assemble the full block together, and it will be 10.5 inches before it's sewn together, and then which will make a 10-inch finished block. So to finish this pattern, we need 2 of the 4-patch blocks and then 2 of the solid blocks. And be sure you orient your 4-patch blocks in the same direction like you see here. So I will sew together each of the sides, or each halves together like this first, and then I will sew the seam in the middle to finish the block. So I will get started with this. Okay, so I sewed together the center seams of each one, and I left them attached like that in between on purpose because this is the way I wanted to sew them together in the end. And so this made it easier when I then press the seams, and then I can fold them together or put them together with the string attached. Then I can sew this seam, and I know that I have it sewn together in the right orientation. So there's the first finished double 4-patch block. So I will continue sewing together the rest of my pile here, and I'll have all the 4-patch blocks sewn. I will then press the seams in the center. In a future video, we will be showing how we put together this quilt and a couple others like it using a feature block fabric and the double 4-patch. I hope you enjoyed this video on how to make a double 4-patch block using your Accuquilt Go cutter. Please like, share, and comment on this video. Visit our website, needlepointers.com, for lots of other Accuquilt Go and other quilting tutorials and videos. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for our weekly newsletter so you can keep up with all our new projects.